for my connection.
Yeah, no, it's believe me, we've had it all on dispatches for sure. And some of the contortions that my face gets stuck in, nothing to be proud of. But so there was not only kind of a disassociation from just a, a human feeling, um, but there was also outside media or ideas that you know there was a danger out there.
Yes, yes. And so South Africa was very tightly controlled from a media point of view. We only got television in the country when I was in my final year of high school. Most of the radio was controlled by the state. There were very few English language newspapers that were really liberal. The Lorraine Daily Mail, the Star to some degree, became increasingly so. The Lorraine Daily Mail probably more than any of them. And so, yeah, it was very interesting. I think the way the news and everything came out in that sense, and how people were able to share and experience things in a collective kind of way. Very different to here right now.
So it is. The state needs control. It needs the force to keep humans apart like that.
Yeah, yeah. And it was a part, but sharing the collective space, right? You could see black people a lot, but you never really interacted in a public way, in a way that you would be considered equals.
Mhm.
Not ever.
And were there black newspapers that were telling their stories? How did that work?
Yes, yes, there were. But I mean, the government still censored a lot. There was censorship. You had to submit all your text prior to printing to the government for approval. Really
Mm.
crazy, crazy laws. You wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so eventually things did change, but it was quite some time. I mean, the Soweto uprising being in 1976, and then Nelson Mandela was freed in 1990.
Correct.
So
Yeah, it took a
that's a
long time.
long time. Yeah.
Yeah, there was some very entrenched, very well-established structures, and the political party that ran the country at the time, the National Party, certainly they had all the levers that they needed for a very long time to manage things. But I think just the collective pressure, both internally and outside of the country, the international isolation, oil embargoes, and things like that, really caused you know, a lot of problems. A lot of countries wouldn't allow South African passport holders into the country, things like that. So it got to be a very sanctioned environment.
Mhm. And that's an interesting aspect, talking about parallels to what this country is going through right now. I think the United States has always been the country that other people look to for guidance in things like this. All men are created equal.
Indeed, I think that's one of the biggest differences as well. Is the American history. I mean, walking around the mall in Washington, reading the memorials, the words that are spoken are so powerful, yeah, and what so many leaders have said and that has been recorded is so powerful. It was so different to what we grew up with. There wasn't that foundation of a basis on which you could argue equality.
Mm.
The foundation, the law, the legislature, everything was founded on inequality, and it was accepted as that is the way it was meant to be.
And it had, this inequality, this systemic racism has been going on in this country. It's how the country was started uh, for our whole time. But people are saying now they're feeling like things are definitely changing. The governor was on today talking about changes in police reform across the state. Um, but also, we're feeling it in the protests. We're feeling it, or it's being announced in the workspace, in the commercial space. Um, have you felt any of that resonance, like in the workspace?
Yes, yes, I have. So I work for a large corporation, and in the past, when there've been like 9/11 and events that were really traumatic, they offered support, they offered help that you could get maybe in some sort of way through the organization. This has been different. This has been outright full-on discussions, inviting Black colleagues to talk about their experiences.
Hmm.
Emotions that you would not normally associate it with a workspace have been coming to the fore. I mean, video conferences with literally hundreds and hundreds of people on them, and people telling their story, others who are listening clearly very emotional about it. And I think one of the more powerful things is these are colleagues that you see on a regular basis. You know the names of the people who are speaking, you know who they are and where they work, and I've not seen anything quite as overt and as clear from management and leadership as we have recently.
Mm. That's good because I think one of the aspects of this is, once you open yourself up to a person and you hear their story, you can't unhear it.
Yeah.
So you either then have to make a conscious decision to participate in their life and make corrections within yourself, or you have to decide that you're not going to do that.
Yeah, totally. I think it brings you to that choice, because you can't ignore it and you can't just explain it or excuse it away.
Right.
You have to make a choice.
Right. But as you know, so just one more question. I know we've been going on. It's a great conversation. That idea of making a conscious decision at some point, but I think you were here in the States when apartheid fell in South Africa. But did you have a sense of what it felt like within the community to see that those changes were coming?
Yeah, actually, as it happens, we went back in 1990, which was kind of interesting. So we returned to the country, Carol and I, before Sean and Jacqueline were born. And so we were there, we were able to vote in the first election that included people of all races voting.
Wow.
And there was a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of real angst amongst the population. But very fortunately, people from all persuasions, I think, waited to ride it out to see where it would go. There were no mass arrests, no mass violence. There was no instance of anybody, stealing whole swaths of property or anything else like that. There was none of the fears that people had in the past came to fruition, which was great. It was very joyous.
Yeah, that's the fascinating thing. I think, part of this whole systemic racism is based on this idea that we all have a certain amount of fear. We live in a certain amount of fear that the status quo must be maintained. But and as you're saying, like I heard you loud and clear, angst, fear. When things change in a society, when a change that huge happens, I can see that everyone would be scared. But I think, that's why we have to begin to take the responsibility ourselves in order to prepare ourselves for that change, to allow it to happen and not to be afraid and just veer off course and go to the status quo.
And if I may add one thing that's a crucial ingredient to that, and that is really good leadership. We had Nelson Mandela. I mean, you could not get better. You know what I mean? Shall we sit it?
Oh, you had to dash my hopes.
I think you're going to have to wait a little while for some really good leadership.
Yeah. No, I understand. And I'm glad that you said that because, again, we have to take, all of us have to take responsibility. And so if that is a key ingredient, then we, the people, have to take it upon ourselves to seek out and to understand what is. I mean, we may want different things out of the political spectrum, but we still need it to come from good leaders.
Indeed.
Oh, heavy stuff. All right, Michael. Well, thank you very much. Let's check back in. I feel like we just scratched the surface of the story, but I think it might be helpful along the way if we are able to check in and just hear more.
That'd be great. And Scott, thank you for investing your time and talents in the show. It's beneficial for everyone.
Well, time. I think we're still looking. We're looking. We'll see if the kid has any talent, but definitely the time.
way too modest.
All right, Michael. Thank you very much. Have a great night, and we'll talk again soon.
My pleasure.
All right.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, big things. And speaking of leadership, we've got a couple more clips. The first, I had a great opportunity to talk to Tom LaFlesh earlier today. He's a musician. If you have heard his music, you may have heard it under the name Hank Thomas. We had a great conversation this afternoon, and then he's got a new music video that's out on YouTube. We're going to show it tonight, but it is definitely a bit of, I don't want to say it's an indictment of our leadership, but it's definitely a person who's looking around, say, help. Here we go. So let's listen to the. Let us. We're going to listen to the song first, and then we're going to listen to the interview. It's froze. Okay, song first, then interview.
Dear Mr. President, could you please drop another check in the mail to me? We're running low on groceries and the landlord wants the rent. We do everything our governor asks while you run around without a mask. Got a notice yesterday they're turning off the lights. Enough's enough. It's hard towns in America. Enough's enough. Hard towns in America. There's hard times in America these days. Enough's enough. Corporate greed is out of hand. Ain't nothing left for small businessman. There's hard times in America these days. Unemployment line is over here. CEO bonus over there. I just want to keep what took me half a lifetime to achieve. Enough's enough. There's hard times in America. Enough's enough. Hard times in America. There's It's the burden of the working man. Your shameless lies go on and on while his mother's dying all alone. Can't go to church in his own town while you go play another round. The unseen hand who guides us on says love thy neighbor as thyself. That's why I'm begging you, please. Well, Mr. President, could you tell my ma when my daddy's gonna be coming home? He walks a beat long 12-hour days. He does his part to keep us safe. It sure don't feel like the promised land, like you were dodging Vietnam. We got a never-ending funeral train in the name of liberty. Oh, there's hard times in America. Hard times in America. There's hard times in America these days. While people die out in the street, you sit on the golden throne and tweet. There's hard times in America these days. There's hard times in America. Hard times in America. There's hard times in America these days. These days. These days. Enough's enough.
Hey, Tom, how are you, sir?
Hey, Scott, how you doing?
Good, good. How's it going?
We're doing all right over here, and well, there's that pandemic thing, and we're trying to observe all the guidelines, wearing a mask, don't go out very often. There's not a lot of protests in our area.
Mm-hmm.
We're way over in eastern Connecticut. Some of the bigger cities at the other end of the state, there's been a lot going on there, but it's pretty quiet here.
So how long have you been writing music?
Oh, that's a good question. I started writing probably in 1974, so a couple of weeks ago. And I really picked it up again in about 2005, and I've written probably, 120 songs since then.
And then how do you get into a new tune?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it usually starts with the title, although sometimes, I'll hear some music and just things just pop into my head. I get a lot of ideas, just I don't even know where they come from. I wake up in the morning and it's playing in my head, and wake up during the night and there's a song playing that I know nothing about.
And so how does all this come together? Like, is it people you know, connections?
Connections-wise, I've connected with an awful lot of other writers throughout the country and done a lot of collaborations with them. I worked with some really good producers out of Nashville who've done quite a few of my songs for me. Singers, from throughout the country through air gigs and, their own websites and stuff. People I heard, I'm like, boy, that would sound good on one of mine.
And so how did this song in particular come together?
This particular song, it basically is a follow-up to my song, Hard Times in America 2010, which dealt mostly with specifically with the financial crash. I and my family, like many other Americans, were severely affected by it. And that one was more questioning of what was going to happen. Just kind of when is this going to happen type of stuff. And this one is far more pointed at our lack of leadership in this country right now, and the things that somebody is doing to really not help.
Right. And who are some of the musicians? Have you worked with these guys before?
Oh well, the guys that are playing on Hard Times in America 2020 are I've run into along the way. The vocalist Ron Wallace, I found him through one of my other producers. I heard Ron sing, and I said, "Can you get this guy?" And he said, "Sure." And Ron has now been probably on, 12, 14 of my productions. Wow. And I trust his vocals and his abilities and his interpretations. I just say, do what you want.
Right.
And Jason, I heard through that same producer. I did a song, collaborated with a friend of mine, David Charles, and it needed a fiddle. And Martin Young, the producer, said, "I always hired this guy." And his name is Jason Roller. And he did the fiddle on that, and I was just totally blown away by it. Him and Ron both put an awful lot of extra effort into it. Jason did extra tracks that I didn't even ask for, didn't charge me anything for them.
Wow.
And, as you'll hear, it's come out pretty good.
Cool song, for sure.
Well, thanks, Scott. Tell Kate and the boys and you that Barbara sends her love and hopes that everyone is well.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom. Give Babs a hug from Kate and I, and we'll talk to you soon. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Unfortunately, a great tune, it's a great tune, but then, God, it's just so much suffering, so much suffering. I just also wanted to, with this idea of National Youth Day and thinking about the kids and thinking about getting ourselves out of these systemic problems that we're in, I just wanted to roll. Oh, yeah. So Kate got a DVD we watched the other night about the segregation of Alabama, of the school in Alabama, and was some great words. JFK gave a speech right after that incident happened, after those two kids had gotten into the university, and then JFK went on television and gave this speech. This is just a little snippet of it, but I thought it had a lot of resonance today.
Now the time has come for this nation to fulfill its promise. The events in Birmingham and elsewhere have so increased the cries for equality that no city or state or legislative body can prudently choose to ignore them. The fires of frustration and discord are burning in every city, north and south. Where legal remedies are not at hand, redress is sought in the streets, in demonstrations, parades, and protests, which create tensions and threaten violence and threaten lives. We face, therefore, a moral crisis as a country and a people. It cannot be met by repressive police action. It cannot be left to increase demonstrations in the streets. It cannot be quieted by token moves or talk. It is a time to act in the Congress, in your state and local legislative body, and above all, in all of our daily lives. It is not enough to pin the blame on others, to say this is a problem of one section of the country or another, or deplore the facts that we face. A great change is at hand, and our task, our obligation, is to make that revolution, that change, peaceful and constructive for all. Those who do nothing are inviting shame as well as violence. Those who act boldly are recognizing right as well as reality.
Those who act boldly are recognizing right as well as reality. And I think that's one of the important things that Michael said was it didn't feel right, right? We know what our reality is, and now we have to act right. So, thank you to Tom, Michael, and Leah for tonight, and thank you to you for tuning in. And on Thursday, we are going to have an amazing show. Emmett Tross, who you remember from last week, Justice for George Queens. He was one of the founders of Justice for George Queens. Emmett's going to be on, and he's going to sing a couple of songs. And we had a conversation, just kind of like a prelim conversation, and it's going to be amazing. And I have to go. Kate worked tonight at the hospital, and so I have to go. This may sound crazy to you. I don't know if it does or not, but I have to go downstairs and open the garage door so she can come in and decontaminate. So, have a great rest of your Tuesday evening. Hunker, hug, Haven. We'll see you on Thursday.